You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver media podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
No sound. You got no sound, sir. We can't hear you.
Well, let's try that. Is that better?
It's better.
Okay. Well, good morning if you happen to be on Mountain Time, or good afternoon, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 3 of the True North Eager Beaver. But, today we have a little special. It's our Alberta election special, basically episode number 4 or part 2 of episode 3 or 3.5, however you want to call it. Today, recording day, is Sunday, April 30th, last day of the month, 2023, and it started off a little gray, but it looks like the sun is making an effort here at the Beaver Lodge. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as always, is my good friend, my constant companion, Mr. Grizzly. Of course, a big thank you goes to our founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. We have, well, before we do that, yes, we have to say hello, of course, to Mr. Grizzly and ask you, how's your mental health, good sir?
Do you need the coffee this morning?
I'm actually excited. I actually have a little too much adrenaline. Plus, I have a hard out today, so I have to be disciplined. So,
you have what out today?
A hard out.
Oh, a hard out.
Yes.
I thought you said your heart
Yeah,
out.
I'm borrowing your lingo.
What? I hear you. Yeah, no problem. I'm feeling okay, better than yesterday. The migraine's still there, but it's diminished considerably to the point where I'm not a crusty bugger. So, yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, doing better.
Okay. I think your processor might be eating you up. You seem a little pixelated there. Yesterday, we had the honor and the privilege of Craig Baird from Canadian History A or X on our show, and we had a great conversation. Would have loved to have had the opportunity to have our guest today, Nate Pike from the Breakdown, Alberta, and him together, but schedules didn't work. But they'll be with us, hopefully, together on our May 29th show, and we'll be able to get them talking together there, because we talked a little history yesterday. But today we're going to talk a little more current events. So, Mr. Grizzly, why don't we invite our guest in? Please, warm welcome and a round of applause. to Nate Pike of The Breakdown.
How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. How are
You heard
you?
yourself?
I have a big cup of coffee beside me here, so I am doing good and getting better.
Okay.
Awesome.
My friend, you have been busy.
A little bit.
Oh boy.
Okay. Let's see. We've got people receiving gifts and go donations. We have people being nominated to multiculturalism committees and then resigning because interesting things. We have I'm sure there's still some Pulaski stuff going on in the background, but even though we haven't been hearing about it. But basically, we have a zone essentially being flooded. I mean, there's like a daily 2 or 3 things, which maybe that's why nobody's talking about Pulaski anymore, because there's just so many brush fires to like put out. But whoa, holy moly, my friend.
And it's getting worse. Like this morning, we already have a new thing that kicked off literally about half an hour ago. The same candidate from Livingstone McLeod who made the comments about, if you have a heart attack, you really should have just taken better care of yourself. She put up a fascinating statement where she said, okay, so before I entered politics, I said a lot of things on social media, a lot of things. And I probably shouldn't have said those things. I probably should have, I'm paraphrasing for the record. I probably shouldn't have said those things. I probably should have researched those things more better. But I said a lot of things. I've grown as a person. I hope we can move on. Now, her social media was quite aggressively purged a little while ago because before she started to run for the UCP nomination, she was actually ran to be the mayor of the town that she's in. And so the DMs of the breakdown right now are quite busy because there's a lot of people who are floating the idea, the rumor, if you will, that there may have been a database of all of the UCP candidates' very bad social media posts. That database may have somehow been breached. And so it's only about to get spicier, possibly, as a very careful language.
So not so much upcoming bozo eruption, but more like collective bozo volcanic eruption.
Yeah, like it looks like it's going to be kind of a Vesuvius thing, because you know when you have, I mean, if it was just one of the other candidates out of the blue who had no problems in the past saying, I might have said some things, sorry about that, guys. Then it would probably be a little bit less eyebrow raising. But when it's the same candidate who already got massive media coverage because of her appearance on a fairly far right podcast that was hosted by the leader of Take Back Alberta, where she talked about if you get a heart attack, you really should have just taken better care of yourself, which she acknowledged was political suicide. Because in the precursor comment to her saying that, she said, this is probably political suicide.
Watch me dive.
Yeah, I'm going to go right into it. The fact that it's her is going to have a couple of compounding effects. So the first one's going to be that there's going to be way more media coverage on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a known commodity that's saying ridiculous things.
Mm-hmm.
And B, I understand the preemptive statement, but it's already made everybody go, what now?
Well, let's see how bad it is.
Yeah,
that's the first thing I hear said. Because, I mean, petty's my favorite color. And I might, if you got something not nice to say, come sit next to me. So let's go see what you had to say, girlfriend.
Exactly. So
inspiring minds want to know. How bad was it?
It's going to be a wild month.
It's like a bad joke. It's like, my Twitter feed was so bad. How bad was it?
There you go.
Click, click, click.
I was just, before I came on, I was just going through the timeline of the breakdown to sort of reacquaint myself with all of the events of the week. And I'm not going to lie, looking at some of the things, I was like, wait, that was 5 days ago?
Yeah.
Because it feels like forever ago already.
Because I was listening to your stuff and I was like, holy crap, man, how was he doing? And if I remember correctly, that candidate, I remember you reported, has a husband that also has interesting thoughts on.
Yeah, they forgot to purge his. It's purged now. But they forgot to purge his social media. So we went back um, after the heart attack comment thing. We were like, well, let's go see what the hubby has to say. And he had pro Putin videos on there. He apparently, judging from his Facebook posts, was involved in, for sure, several convoys, and it looks like one of them was in fact the Coots blockade, which isn't great, especially when you take into context the fact that the alleged campaign manager for the candidate is one of the people who's up on charges for the Coots blockade. So it's just like it's a little bit hills have eyesy in Alberta right now.
It's like it's an SNL skit, isn't it? It's an SNL skit. Like, I mean, legitimately, it's so absurd.
Well, and I mean, even just yesterday, you referenced the candidate, not the candidate, but the individual who was appointed to the Inclusion and Multiculturalism Council for the Premier, who had a history of Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism, and
that picture is
it's like it's not very often that I put up like a, hey, brace yourselves because this gets pretty bad pretty quick. And I had to do that on the last 2 Sundays episodes, because it's a graphic picture. But photos leaked yesterday, because yesterday was everybody's soft campaign launch, even though the writ hasn't been dropped yet, which is just like, please just pull the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
But that candidate appeared, or that individual appeared at one of the campaign rallies and was pictured front and center with one of the candidates, the UCP candidates, who's, at least for the next, I don't know, 24 hours or so, still a minister of the Crown. So they've learned their lessons.
I do have to say this. While we're all present here. I think this is. Hey, how about them Oilers?
Yeah,
I hear there's some
On to
sports
round
thing
two.
going on.
some sports thing
Yeah,
going
some
on.
sportsing. Yeah.
There was a pucky thingy and some red lights flashed, and it's like 6 times, times or something.
Yeah.
Holy crow!
Yeah.
They done did well.
But
did well.
But we've got like a tale of 2 cities essentially going on, right?
Well, it's
like-
Battleground Calgary.
Yeah. But I mean, like the hockey team, the Oilers are doing well. Calgary's are not in, and it seems that there are 2 different processes for getting new arenas, depending on which city you're living in and how close you are to an election. Now, of course, apparently the money is not so much for the arena, but everything around it.
Like,
Yeah.
when she actually came out and said at the arena announcement, when she actually came out and said, hey, there's this one hurdle left. I got to get cabinet to approve it. Haven't done that yet. Probably not going to be time. So I guess you're just going to have to make sure you vote for the UCP if you want your arena, Calgary. Like, it was so, like, I watched the announcement and I was just like, did she actually? And now she's, of course, trying to backpedal a little bit, where she's like, no, I don't want the election to be about the arena. And it's understandable why, because when you take a look at, of course, she has connections that go back to the arena folks. It's just like,
that's great for attracting foreign investment.
well,
I'm the type of potential future premier that announces big projects a couple of weeks just before the registrar, or maybe a couple of days, and that may or may not happen. But hey, I did all this work to get all these people to arrange all this financing, but who knows?
Well, the crazy thing is, when you take a look at the key players from the Flame side, so the owners of the Flames, the people of the Calgary Sports Entertainment, whatever the hell it is, most of them, if not all of them, are and were part of an organization called the Alberta Enterprise Group. The Alberta Enterprise Group is a collection of like-minded business people who want to advance businessy things. And when Danielle Smith lost her radio program, she was made president of that group right up until she announced she was running for UCP leadership. So she's literally coming from a place where she was president of the group, where she was advocating for a lot of the things that she's now making sure are getting paid for. And there's a lot of people who are looking at the way that the deal is structured and the details. We still need the details, but it appears that the way the deal is structured is what the province has done is they've come in and they've said, hey, City of Calgary, you want to pay more money? And the City of Calgary said, no, thank you. And went to the private owners and said, hey, you want to pay more money? And the private owners said, no, thank you. And so the province then said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make you actually, to the private owners, we're going to make you pay less money. We're going to come in with a boatload of taxpayer dollars. We're going to assume a lot of responsibility for the infrastructure around the site that you would normally have to pay for and in the previous deal did. We're going to take that all off the table. So if we take like, I don't know, $300 million or something out of your responsibility, are you cool now? And of course they said, well, we'd like some more stuff too, please. But yes. So now they've got a bunch of land option buying rights, and it's just a giant mess.
Yeah.
But here's the thing,
Yeah.
and this is the core piece of the conversation.
And they want to manage the pension.
Oh, don't even get me started on that because we got a bomb coming on that later tonight. But we're talking about an organization that generates millions of dollars and is owned by billionaires. It's ludicrous. And there are so many case examples across North America, in Canada and the United States, where taxpayers get fleeced by these sorts of deals. And the people who already are making the mad money continue to make the mad money. Like, it's absolutely ludicrous at a time where Danielle Smith is paying people $100 a kid or old person because things are so unaffordable that we're now going to take all of the taxpayer dollars and subsidize billionaires. It's ridiculous.
Welcome to the new feudalism.
Right?
I mean, tell me they're not our new feudal overlords. I mean, people say I'm being hyperbolic when I say this, but not if you really look at what's taking place. I mean, that is complete. Look, and here's the best part. She's not even trying to hide what she's doing.
Plain sight.
You know, it's Doug Ford's doing the same thing. They're emboldened to doing it now. They're fleecing the public in front of the public, and they're not ashamed of it. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? I don't even know what to think anymore, man, because it's so bizarre. If you had told me 20 years ago, 20 years from now, in 2023, a former hash dealer from Etobicoke will be the premier of Ontario, and he's going to sell off everything he can. And by the way, that's not an accusation. It's been a proven fact that he was a hash dealer. It's well known. He did graduate high school. He dropped out of college. Let's set the record straight on that. But if you had told me that would be running Ontario, and that we've got this woman in Alberta who wants to be a sovereign nation within a nation and control the airports, which she can't do because that's a federal program, wants to set up zones to fly to safe freedom areas in Florida, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. That'll never happen. That's the most bizarre. And yet here we are. We have people who believe that there's a 5G nanobot chip in the vaccine, and that the world is flat and Nazism is on the rise. 20 years ago, I would have said, no, none of that could ever happen. Yet here we are. And I just don't know what to think anymore. It's just so. Last night I was on the Twitter and I saw some stuff. I made one comment and I'm like, that's it. I'm out. I've had enough. My blood pressure's starting to rise. This is ridiculous. The world is upside down. People lie. Politicians lie, blatantly lie to our faces when we can prove within 2 seconds on the Googler that they lied to us.
Yeah, it's literally cheap lies.
Yep.
It's cheap lie. They're not even creative.
Yep.
Like the whole thing where you can't tear up the Constitution like that, which we spoke about yesterday. It's like nobody said anything of that nature.
Yeah. So your question, your concern.
Yeah.
Moving on. Yeah, whatever.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it because it's a line that I don't like to go down because it tends to be a bit of a divisive line. But there are players in this game, in the election in Alberta, who are coming from, I'll say, two different faiths. One of them is the faith of the almighty dollar.
Yes.
And the other one is take back Alberta. I think we talked about it last time I was on. they're really starting to show their hand now. And some of the things that we've been talking about for a while are finally starting to bubble up to the surface as being real. So the leader of Take Back Alberta, it was revealed in a Globe and Mail article yesterday, or confirmed, I should say, because we've been poking that bear for a little while. He's actually married to one of the chief political correspondents for a media organization. Check out our pinned tweet called True North. And their Telegram group seems to clearly show that they are coordinating their messaging. So he's giving her things that Take Back Alberta wants to talk about. She's then writing those stories for this far right media organization.
Shades of Brian Lilly and Ivana Yelich.
Yep. But even more concerning, one of the people that they have involved as one of their organizers is a woman named Benita Peterson. And she's kind of famous for being heavily involved with Convoy and freedom stuff. She was outside of a hospital. She organized protests outside of hospitals during COVID.
Nice lady.
There's no shortage of video of her where she's presenting herself as being a journalist. And she's telling nurses that they're lying. They're just lying. There's nobody in the hospital with COVID. You're lying. You're all part of the big conspiracy. You're liars and you lie. So she's doing a lot of the organizing for Take Back Alberta now. And one of the recent posts that she put up, she makes it very clear that they want to take back all of the levels of government to make sure that our swimming pools and the change rooms are safe, and to make sure that the libraries don't have inappropriate books in them. So it's not just like they didn't come out and say it. I mean, straight come out and say it probably is the right turn of phrase, but they're now targeting the trans community, and they're now targeting what books can and cannot exist in libraries. And you know, there's certainly there's debate to be had about what sections, what books should be in. And there's certainly, you know, very strong reason to argue, well, maybe there's some books that shouldn't necessarily be in the elementary. I don't think 50 Shades of Grey needs to be in an elementary school library. But to say that can't be in a high school library, or to say that Handmaid's Tale can't be in a high school library, that's dangerous ground because when you start to, I mean, I wouldn't say that 50 Shades of Grey is literature. I've never read it, so I can't speak to it. But to something like The Handmaid's Tale, that is a cornerstone piece of Canadian literature. And
absolutely,
to say that books like that, or any book that has any sort of reference to anything sexual, can't be in libraries is a very, very dangerous road to go down. And when you combine that with Smith's reprofessed love of DeSantis and the book bannings that are going down in Florida, which are largely being driven, by the way, by fringe groups that are saying, I don't like this book, you should take it out. I don't like this book, you should take it out. Because the way that DeSantis did it, in effect, was he structured a law that said, if you don't like these books, then they can be banned. You just have to go through this process to determine what books need to be removed from the shelves. And anybody who hasn't even read the books can submit a complaint, and then the books get pulled. And
which is absurd.
It's absolute. It's that far away from book burning.
Oh yeah. And you know that's next. You know that's next.
Oh, I'm sure
you know
that they
that's
will. I'm sure that there will be organizations that decide, hey, you know what? We've decided that these books shouldn't be in libraries, so we're going to have us a good old-fashioned book burning. And I don't think that they're going to realize just how far they've actually gone, because these are people who are operating. And this is where I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. The left and the right fundamentally differ, because the right, members of the right, I should be clear. So I'm not talking about everybody on the right, but there's a lot of people on the right who are approaching politics from a place of religious fervor. And they believe that this is their God-given mission to do X, Y, Z and save society, period. And so the left has a tendency of going, fuck, I don't want to deal with this. And withdrawing, because it is so over the top, so always. But the people who are pushing these agendas, the people who are talking about the banning trans people from washrooms and change rooms, or getting rid of books in libraries, And these are public libraries, to be clear, as well.
Mhm.
It's not just school libraries that they're talking about.
Yeah, it's like a town city library sort of
Yep.
thing.
They're not going to stop because God told them to do this.
Right.
Well, and that's largely religion driven. And I was reading an article yesterday about how something like 57%, I think that was the number. Now, is that representative of 330 million people? I honestly don't know how many people were polled, but they want a theocracy in the United States, and they keep saying, the United States of America is a Christian nation. No, it isn't. It never was. It was founded for religious freedom, but it was not founded as a Christian nation. It's written in their constitution, separation of church and state. But they're trying to rewrite that. And I keep telling people The Handmaid's Tale is not a manual. It's not a manual. Stop. It's disturbing because you will have a Christo-fascist state on your hands if people, we just get so worn down, and this is what they're doing. They're trying to wear us down, and it's taking place because there's days where I have to unplug, but I'm not going to unplug permanently.
See, that's what matters.
We have to be vigilant. We have to stay on top of this, because I'm telling you, if we don't, we will find ourselves in a theocracy quicker than you know.
Mm-hmm.
We did a fascinating and deeply alarming conversation with former conservative MLA minister and deputy premier Thomas Lukasik.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That was absolutely fantastic. I watched it. I've got like clips set aside. Like I could have basically just like played the whole show within it, right, and just let that go. You have to see it, kids. You have to see it. It's really
I was very grateful that he agreed to come on the show. But one of the things that I asked him there, because I've been running this nightmare scenario through my head over and over again, and I couldn't find a way to disarm it, is if the election is as close as it's proposed to be, if the polling's accurate, it's going to be 5 to 10 seats at the most that determine who forms government in Alberta. If it's accurate, if Smith and the UCP form government, and they've got like 7 seats, let's say, all it takes is 7 MLAs who have allegiances to an organization like Take Back Alberta, if not Take Back Alberta, to say, hey, that's a real nice government you got there. If you don't want to have a non-confidence vote on your first bill or on your budget, here's your legislative agenda. We've written it for you. Any questions? And they can do that. And in fact, Mr. Lukasik was very clear that that's happened before. There was a premier who was forced out of office, in effect, by a group of hard right MLAs who said, this is what we'd like you to legislate on. And if you don't, then we're going to make your budget motion a non-confidence vote, and you're not going to win. That premier ended up stepping down. So this is a strategy that absolutely can work, where a small group of radicalized people, extremists, if you will, can influence the entire government for the entire province just because they managed to push through 6 MLAs. And when you take a look at the fact that Take Back Alberta proudly states that they have control of half of the UCP board, they've done a very good job of taking over constituency associations, and Smith is beholden to them. We saw that this week. The candidate for Calgary Lougheed went and had himself quite the little fundraiser, where they had Convoy organizers. James Bowder was there.
Yeah,
and
he was there.
That's the guy who wrote the MOU saying, hey, Governor General, would you please overthrow the government for me and then install us in power, because we think we'll do great.
And who told him to do that again? Who told him to do that?
I don't actually know who told him to write the MOU.
God,
of course.
According to him, on the 5th estate, God told me to do this, to form a convoy and to write this MOU. I'm like, dude, look, I'm not going to belittle anybody's belief system, but I'm going to question if
I am.
if a supreme being actually said that, a deity said that to you,
No.
wouldn't wouldn't that supreme being maybe, I don't know, have a conversation with some of the big holy leaders of the different religious sects around the world, like the Pope,
Well, I mean,
for example?
No, I don't buy that. As a member of the rainbow community, I don't buy that, because I've heard that. I'm sorry. People who tell you they know what God wants, for some reason, what
Yeah,
God
they're
wants
full
seems
of
to
shit.
dovetail perfectly with what they want. So no thanks.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, here's the two pieces that I think are important. Mr. Lukasik is a bona fide credentialed as you can get. He served under
Yeah.
5 conservative premiers.
Right.
He's as
Mhm.
conservative, Alberta conservative as you can get. And he's very clear that the UCP and especially Danielle Smith are not conservative.
They're
They
not.
are using the conservative brand, but they're not conservative. And I would argue that when it comes to folks who make, claims like that, I think it's absolutely imperative that Mr. Lukasik and other conservatives like him call out the UCP for what it is. And if somebody's going to claim that God told them to take over the Capitol with an MOU, first of all, I have questions because it didn't work. So
Yeah.
divine will only gets you so far. But second of all, I think that's where it's incumbent on people of faith to say, I think that might be bullshit.
Yeah.
I wanted, because I'm a little confused about something, because you have the Tariq Khan thing going
Yeah.
on, and then there was, so is there the person that stepped down, was that an actual MP? Like, are there like 2 cases of these things going on with 2 people?
Oh, there's lots. So Tariq Khan, he stepped down. He was the one who had all of the anti-Semitism
Right.
and the Holocaust denial stuff.
Because he was appointed to the multiculturalism board.
Yeah.
Which, of course, I note an inherent irony now for the CAM money that went to Leith Rauf, or whatever his name, in Montreal. Like this, the federal government gave some money to an organization that apparently had hired someone who had basically an anti-Semitic background to do some but Ahmad Hussein asked for the money back and then opened an investigation into how this happened. But conservatives lost their mind. I mean, it's all that Brian Lilly and Goldstein, all them, wrote about, like, for about like 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now we've got this guy who's on the multiculturalism committee, who had to step down, who had that photo that I am also loath to show. But you did, so I'm going to go for it. But all the trigger warnings, Mr. Grizzly.
Mm-hmm. So everybody, we're going to give you a parental guidance warning. Here we go. Yikes.
Yeah.
It's enough of that.
Yeah.
Now, they knew of this. The party knew of this, from what I'm gathering from what you told us on your show.
Oh, that's
knew
the
of
cherry
this
on top.
before. So when Kenny was there, they did not allow him to be a candidate because of stuff like this.
Yeah,
But
he
now that
tried
guy
to
knows-
run. He tried to run in 2019, and the party took a look at his social media and were like, "Oh, that's not going to work for us." They sent him a letter, which we received a copy of, where they basically said, "Hey, so that's super hateful and not in line at all with our party policies. It's not in line at all with what the party wants to be. So long. Thanks for all the fish." And disqualified him. And it was fascinating to watch Casey Madhu at the press conference, I believe it was last week, where he was like, they were like, "So how come you guys even let him on?" And he was like, "We didn't know." And they were like, "But you're the ones who vetted and disqualified him. Like, this isn't, you have ministers." The kicker to this thing is he's very clearly close with at least one minister, because, like I said, he was at the Minister McAmery's launch. But to claim that the minister who ran against him in the nomination before he was disqualified didn't hear anything about this, and she's still a minister.
Okay. Now here's the other thing, right? This is the other thing you put. This one has a twofer, Mr. Grizzly. So there was that photo, and then there was this. So Shahid Afzal Guru will remain a symbol of freedom of our motherland. He gave his life for the noble cause. Yada yada yada. Who's the Shahid Afzal Guru? Convicted for his role in the 2001 Indian Parliament attack. He was a member of the Pakistan-based jihadist terrorist organization Jaish-e-Mohammed. So he had a role in an Indian Parliament attack. We just saw January 6th, and it's past January 6th, and she thought that he would be a good person to put on a multiculturalism board. And where are the articles from Lillian Goldstein, who lost their minds about whatever his name is? Who got a media thing, and the government said, "Oh, we can't do that, and we're taking that money back, and we're looking into how that happened." And this is, oh yeah, you caught us. Yeah, he's gone now, and one media question per outlet. Oh no, let's correct that. Now it is one per reporter now.
Yeah. Well, and it just goes to, all you got to do is slap a different label of the party name on that individual. And it's interesting how the media will switch from bad, evil liberal to, well, he's conservative. He's not that bad. But what he said and did was worse.
I mean, even looking at the candidate from Lougheed, that's another one that blew up this week, where this is a guy who has campaigned on, COVID restrictions are just the worst, guys. I lost my business, my restaurant, because of COVID. It's just, life's so unfair, and COVID was bad, and we can never let this happen again, because freedom. He is, of course, affiliated with Take Back Alberta.
Is that the pizza guy?
No, he's not the Without Papers pizza guy. He had I think it was a Slavic type restaurant, is what he was saying.
Oh, okay.
And it's fascinating because when you go back, we were able to find a news article from 2016 where he's talking about how he moved his business into the core of Calgary, and he isn't making any money. No.
Yeah. That's interesting, but now he's got a scapegoat with COVID and restrictions, right?
He shared a video that mocked supporters of Ukraine, and was walking right up to the edge of being pro-Putin. It also had a lot of other pretty horrifying stereotypes that were included in the video, and he's apparently, through documents that we received, $200,000 in collections from his bank, like 187,000, but that they just went after him for this year. He's the same guy, like I said, who had the fundraiser that all the James Bowder and the Convoy folks went to. Smith tried to say, I had no idea there were any Convoy folks in the crowd, and literally one of them's wearing a Truck Trudeau hoodie with the dates of the Convoy on it in a picture with her.
Yeah.
So,
but I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Man, you can't even come up with a good lie anymore.
Yep.
Like, look, we know politicians lie. I get that, but at least I had respect for the ones who could, be really creative and make it. We had to do some work to figure out that was a lie. This is a 2-year-old on the playground could lie better than this.
Yep.
It's just, it's the worst timeline ever.
It's not boring.
Yeah. So you have this con guy, but is there, like you said, is that person we were talking about the first time, is that someone that was in cabinet that had to step down?
No.
Okay. Because I'm hearing two stories. I don't know if it's the same story.
No, it's two different stories.
Okay, it is two different stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the con guy, he has stepped down from the Inclusion and Multiculturalism Council.
Okay.
And then later on in the week, we learned about the candidate for Calgary Lougheed, who's a different individual. I believe his name's Eric Bouchard. And he's the one who had the restaurant that he blamed on COVID, but he also blamed on the economy 4 years before COVID. And has these rather shocking social media things that he shared, and is $200,000 in debt, and organized the fundraiser that Danielle Smith attended with all the Convoy folks, including Theo Fleury.
Oh, yay.
I feel bad for Theo, man. I feel like
they're using that guy.
There's a lot of people using that guy. And it makes me sad
He
because
doesn't know it.
he has a massive, massive trauma history. There's no question about
Yep.
that. That's well documented. But the fact that there are so many people who are using him and enabling him to go down all of these conspiracy theory rabbit holes that are simply demonstrably false,
When they know he's vulnerable.
it's gross and it's sad. Like, I really, he tried to hop on the breakdown a couple of times this week and be like, well, what about XYZ? And it's just like, what happened to you, man? Because even after he was very public about all of his trauma,
Right.
he was still like, I don't remember him being this much. I don't ever remember
No, he was
pre-COVID.
doing stuff for kids at some point, right?
Yeah. And he was doing a lot of really important, effective advocacy. And the tragedy that I don't think that he realizes, and nobody's willing to point out to him, is that because he's gone so far down the rabbit hole with all of these not things,
Mhm.
it has damaged his ability to act as an advocate for child survivors of sexual trauma. Like, that's just the bottom line.
Yeah. And he's
Yeah.
actually harming kids now in a different way.
Yeah. And it's really sad.
So, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
here's a comment from Rhiannon here, Saucy Seawitch. Theo Fleury is the perfect example of how vulnerable people are taken advantage of and used. It's tragic, to be honest. The same thing with Jamie Saleh. And I completely agree. I believe probably a lot of the isolation that took place over the last 3 years contributed to that, because they would latch on to something and then go down the rabbit hole and get into a bias confirmation echo chamber, and everybody's telling you what you're reading is true and you start to believe it. It's how it happens. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and he's completely lost. He needs counseling, perhaps some medication. The same thing with Jamie Saleh. And the sad thing is, nobody seems to be doing anything to help either one. Do they not have family members or people who love or care for them that could come forward and say, okay, you got to stop this, man. You've gone right off the rails. And I don't know if they're beyond redemption. I'd like to think that they aren't. I would like to think that there's redemptive capabilities for everyone, except for maybe Hitler, of course. But, I think that everybody is capable of redeeming themselves if they can get out of the mess they're in, if they can get out of the bias confirmation echo chamber that they're in and start to listen to real salient points from actual experts, and not somebody who had a theory, who has a doctorate, but their doctorate is not in virology or or immunology or something like that.
There's some fascinating research that's been done on radicalization and de-radicalization, and none of it is optimistic.
None of it. I
The
know.
percentages of people who are able to be de-radicalized after they've become radicalized is shockingly low and tragically low. And
Tragic.
it happens. I mean, for sure. There's
Mhm.
no shortage of people. You can take a look at some of the folks who have come out of white supremacist movements, for example,
Mhm.
where they have been able to. This is your show, not mine, so I'm going to swear.
Go ahead.
But they've been able to unfuck themselves, and
Mhm.
with a lot of help, with a lot of support, with the evidence-based strategies. But I think one of the things that we're going to be grappling with over a very long time, and I think we're grappling with in the province of Alberta, is the fact that we have not insignificant segments of our society that have become radicalized over the last couple of years. They are committed, they are organized, they are networked,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
we're going to have to figure out as a society how we're going to deal with these folks, because they are part of our society. We do have to figure out how we're going to help them.
Yeah, I know. And you're right. You're right, though. They are part of our society. We need to keep that in our minds. And it's difficult because when somebody's screaming hatred in your face, after a while, it starts to get to you a little bit. So, my sort of natural position is one of defense. My whole life I was a goaltender or a defenseman in hockey and in soccer, football. And because I was a little kid who got picked on and I moved around a lot because I was a military kid, I'm always in a defensive position. So my instinctive reaction is to come out, fighting. But it's like I'm training myself, thanks to Mr. Beaver here, on how to, step back from that and observe it a little bit, and then show compassion to these folks because they do need it. I cannot empathize with any of them, though. because they all seem to want to do so many of us harm. But I can be compassionate. And what was it? There was somebody who told me, I was on a podcast with Sam G, and there was a woman who told me the story about how my yelling in the streets was able to get her cousin to safety. And she told me, she said she works in a city and works with city council and fields calls from individuals. And she said people just want to be heard. And I'm like, you know what? I think, and that's something I need to pay attention to. People want to be heard. So I'm willing to listen. But if you're going to scream hatred at me and scream hatred, and not necessarily even at me, because I look like one of them, right? Come on. I got the beard. I got the bald head. I look like one of them. But I can walk amongst them. But if I'm going to sit there, you cannot be screaming hatred towards any group of people, except people doing evil things, like Nazis, for example. You want to scream evil things at Nazis? Feel free, go ahead. But it's a complex situation, and I don't have a solution. And I am concerned that if we cannot redeem these people, what do we do? Like, how do we help them? They're still members of our society. They're still Canadians. They still have the same rights and privileges we all enjoy. They can vote for whomever they want. They can practice whatever religion they want, as long as their religion is not harming others. They're free to do so, and I'll support their right to do so. But what are we going to do if these people are not redeemable? What happens? Because, they're already talking about trying to form communities where they have their safe zones that Daniel Smith talked about by flying to Florida. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
There's a lot of fear, I think, is what it boils down to. That's what I've seen. And certainly we've had a couple of, when we do the live shows, and we have people who call in on the Twitter Spaces, because we do allow, don't bring hate speech, don't bring profanity, and you can come in and talk on the show. And there have been more than a couple of folks who have come on with very far right views. And what I've found is we don't back down, but we'll say, no, this is what it is. This is why. And it almost always comes from a place of fear. And that's what's scary about what's going on in the province of Alberta, because when you take a look at, and I'm going to totally acknowledge all of my straight cis white male privilege for just a quick sec before I lean into this next bit. But when we're talking about people who are afraid of or who are anti-LGBTQ, 2S+, these are people who are uncomfortable with their own stuffs and don't know how to deal with it. When we're talking about people who are afraid of books in libraries, these are people who are uncomfortable with their own stuffs and don't know how to deal with it. When we're talking about, I had a conversation in 2019 when they were looking at rolling back protections for GSAs, where I said to somebody, you know what, if you aren't able to have a conversation with your kid and they feel that the only safe space that they can go to is in their school, where there's one of these clubs where their privacy is protected, that's your failure. Period. And that's hard to hear, and it's hard to accept, and I totally get that. But if you haven't been able to establish a relationship with your child where they feel like if they come and say, hey, I've got some things going on I'd like to talk to you about, and they don't feel like you're not going to kick them out of the house or tell them that they're an abomination of God or whatever, if you haven't established that relationship with your kid, that's on you. And trying to flip the whole system to remove protections for kids is just you projecting all of your own insecurities and bullshit. And it's not okay. That conversation ended abruptly, but
Preach. I'm just like, put it in the organ music. I wish we had like that little clip. just like, go past the night. Go past the night.
We had some on the jazz show, a little bit of Hammond B3 organ action taking place on the jazz show. If you listen,
I do love me a rotary speaker.
Yes. Is it Lynn? No, Lynn.
Yeah. All right. I have a couple of clips I want to use. I had so many. Literally, I had like 5 or 6 clips with your interview with Tom. It is that good. It is really that good. The one I want to pick, it goes a little different from what we've talked about, because he talks about why it is or how it is that Notley is different than Smith. So, Mr. Grizzly, here we go. I will put that up for you. All right, here we go.
What made the difference? NDP is not my flavor either. I have epic battles with Rachel Notley and Brian Mason in the legislature because we disagreed on approaches and policies and matters of that nature. But I can tell you one thing. Both with Rachel and with Brian and several other NDP MLAs that were there, a couple are still elected. There was mutual respect. They knew their stuff. Rachel knows policy. She knows governance. She knows law. She knows intergovernmental relations like nobody's business. So when we argued, it was a well-versed argument. It was based on facts, and nobody could BS the other one because you knew that they would call you on it if you tried. So that was important. It was facts, knowledge, research-based, arguments and development of policy. Second thing was there was trust. Often, as a deputy premier, I would sit down with Rachel or with Brian Mason and say, look, let's hammer this out. We can end this session early. What is it that you're looking for? You would make deals on off-the-record basis, and trust was never breached. When you made a deal, and they honored that deal. So that was important. And in the second, during the committee stage of a passing of a bill in the House, MLAs get to sit anywhere they want in the chamber. They don't have to sit in their own seat. I would always make a point to go across and sit down with some opposition member just to ask them how are things in their writing. And when you discuss things with Rachel, I was always satisfied that she's doing what she's doing with noble intentions for her constituents and for the province. We may differ on how we want to get there, but I never, ever questioned her motivations. It wasn't because some lobbyist is lobbying her or some friend of a friend or family member. She always had good policy reason for why she was asking for what she was asking. I could never say that about Danielle Smith.
That's pretty telltale right there, don't you think?
And there's context when he says that he can't trust Danielle Smith, and that was because of her floor crossing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, more than that.
Right.
In the interview, one of the most telling segments for me, there's a lot. Thomas was a fascinating person to have this conversation with. But in the interview, one of the things that he says is that he regularly had interactions with Danielle Smith in question period where she would have her scripted questions. And she was very, very good at reading those scripted questions. But when it came to synthesizing the data that was in those questions into another question or pivoting from an answer that she was given in question period, she got lost. And we've certainly seen when she's on script, and I've said this many times, when Danielle Smith is on script, she's incredibly effective. Where she gets into trouble is when she starts to try to make things up on her own. And you see it where she'll do that sort of, I'm looking up to the upper right. I've said it, I'd love to play poker with her because her tells
got so many tells.
are perfect. But she's not informed. She's not able to maintain the information, and she's not able to form her own reasonable, cogent opinions. It just doesn't happen because she spitballs off the cuff all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he was also particularly offended that when the floor crossing thing came about, that she arranged to have a cabinet position for her.
Well, she tried to.
Yes. Tried to. So, yeah. So he's going like, I can't trust her. I can't trust that. Right. And then when you see what he has to say about Rachel, right. And then he goes on later about lending Rachel a vote, which you made a great comment about how that was a wonderful packaging because words matter. And I'm a communications guy, and I noticed it as well as too. And it's like you stepped up right on that. Says, that's clever. That's good. So, like I said, it's a really great interview. Now, this is not from the interview, but I've seen this, and you used it in the show, and you noticed the exact same thing I noticed as soon as I saw this as well. Mr. Grizzly.
Alberta's been through some tough years since 2015. But the economy is finally hitting its stride again, and employment is booming. Yet that could all be derailed if the Notley NDP wins. We've seen what they've done before: job killing, tax hiking, anti-energy policies leading to mass layoffs, business closures, and recession. It took years to recover from the last NDP government. We can't risk going backwards again. Vote for Alberta. Vote Conservative.
Now, I'm sorry, kids. I should have probably given you a trigger warning that was coming up. I forgot to mention that PN Voldemort was going to be a cup up on your screen there. So for the children watching, I'm so sorry.
Like nothing like blatantly lying, though. Anti-energy. No, Rachel Notley is not anti-oil and gas.
The pipeline's being built because she's the one that decided it was pretty much a good idea to actually listen to what the court said and actually go consult.
Like he just blatantly lied right there.
But what he didn't do is more
Yes.
telling to me.
Yes, please.
Because you do not hear a mention of Danielle Smith in there. And in fact, you don't even hear a mention of the United Conservative Party.
Nope.
You just hear vote conservative. And
Yeah.
I don't think that there was anybody like the video is done in such a way that I think everybody who saw it immediately went, "Oh, we're going to need proof of life."
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're really making
All
me
the
do
police
this.
paper.
How do I get through this 6 minute and 110 seconds without saying Danielle Smith or vote UCP?
Yeah, like it's and this is Harper. He knows communications, he knows messaging, and for him to do that video, it literally looks like somebody stuck him up against a wall and said, "We're going to do a video right now." It's very strange that it was released as early as it was. That would typically be something that you would expect to see much closer to the vote, where it's going to have much better impact. But the fact that that's Stephen Harper saying, "Oh, the NDP suck, vote conservative." I don't want to say Danielle Smith because I don't know if she's going to be here after the election, because there's probably going to be a leadership review. But
vote for Alberta.
vote for Alberta. Like it's when the conservative overlord in Canada can't spit out your name.
It's telling, isn't it?
Damn.
It's a little on the telling side.
Right?
Yeah, I think she's too extreme even for him. Like, they're probably on the same path and they probably believe the same things, but he's like, you're too abrupt for most humanity. Most people can't take the abruptness.
Well, Harper's the ultimate incrementalist, and she's like
yes.
Let's run the end game now. Let's effing go. Whoa.
That's it. He's an incrementalist, and she is. Let's go for all the cards right here.
Blow it all for us. Just
well, and I'm sure that Harper, I mean, he's say what you will about his policies and his politics, and certainly I've got some thoughts on those. But he is incredibly effective when it comes to strategy on most fronts.
Oh, yeah.
And for him to, I have zero doubts that he's looking at Danielle Smith. He's looking at the people that brought her to the dance. He's looking at Take Back Alberta, and he's going, "Oh, we've got a problem here. I don't know how we're going to deal with this." Because she has invited the far fringe into the room, and she has indebted herself to them in such a way that there's no, I'll put it this way. Nobody that I've talked to can see a way out for Smith that doesn't end in her getting removed from leadership. And that's just the ball game.
Yep. Back-to-back NDP mandates, Alberta. 2 terms in the sin bin changes a party's priorities. Just saying.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
We do indeed, good sir.
Nate.
We do indeed.
Thank you so very much.
Oh,
thanks for joining
always
us.
a joy. It's always a joy. I love your content. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Kits, that's the end.
I love your backdrop too.
Yeah, really.
Your lighting is great. The backdrop is awesome.
Yep. I watched some YouTube tutorials.
I need to tune into that. I'm still working on my lighting here. Can you tell?
All right, kids. That's the end of the True North Eager Beaver Alberta pre-election special, episode 3.5, let's say. we'll probably be putting out us 4 because the web doesn't allow us to round up that way with episode numbers. But if you liked what we do, well, we loved making this for you, because sharing is caring. Please give us the word of mouth. We know that it's invaluable, and you have the mouths that we want the word to be coming out of. So spread it very liberally. Wink. Okay. We love to hear from you. So please write to us via our Facebook blog, True North Eager Beaver, our Twitter feed at True Eager, or our email, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. And because democracy is something that you do, particularly if you live in Alberta, take a little writing implement and a little piece of transformed tree and write some scratches down there to let certain MLAs and maybe even media outlets know that you're not down with the cray-cray, and you would probably like the media to ask the inconvenient follow-up question. Thank you very much. All right. If you write, it matters. Trust me. They'll probably think that you're 70 and they really want your vote. So, like, especially if you use cursive. So just letting you know. Okay. So, hey, it's all about strategy, man. We don't make the rules. We just have to play within them.
I have to practice my cursive.
Let's see. I don't know what to say next. I'm sorry. I kind of lost my train of thought to how to close the show. So before we go, yes, absolutely.
You are
If you would,
23 years old. You just got nominated for your 3rd Oscar. So you went to the Oscars for the 3rd.
What the hell is that? Where's that coming from? Somebody won an Oscar. Congratulations.
At
That's
23,
great.
that's an accomplishment.
But
That is an accomplishment.
that was
the Zendaya?
No, that was the YouTube, the clip that played the Harper thing. It got tired of waiting, so it just it was like, okay, you're getting another clip whether you want one or not.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, because democracy said something that you do, right, to do all that stuff. If you would like to support us, we would love that. So that little squiggly thing that Mr. Grizzly's pointing at, that's called a QR code, and if you bring your little cell phone towards that and take a little click there, that will bring you to our emergency hot chocolate Guinness /Caesar /hot chocolate fund and Farm Boy gluten-free ice cream chocolate chip cookie fund. Keeps me alive.
And if you're really thirsty, potato water with some clamato.
Ooh, yes. The potato water with some clamato, or liquid salad.
Invented in Calgary, by the way.
Yes, liquid salad.
True.
Yes. So yeah. Well, then absolutely. Then yeah, because this is an Alberta themed show, then it is a Caesar fund. There you go. It too, kitties.
Well, use Alberta brand potato water and have yourself a Caesar.
There you go.
Alberta vodka is a real thing.
So you use those beautiful digits if you have them. And you go not everybody does. And you go to ko-fi.com, that's coffee, /eagerbeaver, all in one word, lowercase letters. And that's where you will find our emergency fund, where you can keep us nice and hydrated in time for the next show. All right. And somebody will turn us to the sun. Don't worry about that. For the Eager Beaver, this is your Eager Beaver saying it could be a tough world out there, kids. So please take time to be kind to and gentle with yourself, and maybe smell some flowers. Nate, some words of wisdom, please.
I mean, the only thing that I would say is, one of the things that I think that we have to do a much better job of is having conversations with people and being willing to ask people. I had a conversation with somebody earlier this week where they talked about Bill C-11 and the censorship and rana. I was like, it's CanCon, man. Like, have you read the bill? Yeah. And he was like, no. And I was like, I would encourage you to read the bill, because all of the things that you're saying aren't actually part of it. And I understand that you're concerned about it, but rather than believe what somebody who's trying to sign you up for a subscription for a news service is trying to sell you, just read the bill. It's publicly available. And it was I wasn't mean. What might have been a little sarcastic at times, but that's kind of my brand. And he said that he was going to go read the bill. So one of the ways that we can, I think, walk people back from some of the rhetoric that's out there is by saying, hey, you know what? Go read the thing that you're concerned about. Don't just take somebody's word for it. Don't take my word for it, because I got my interpretation of it. But have those conversations, and I'll end with my line: keep the conversation going.
There you go, Mr. Grizzly.
That's a very good one.
Words of wisdom.
Well, I'm going to second that, what you just said, and trying to, you don't need to be empathetic towards a person's cause to show them compassion, and like you said, we do need to communicate better. So it's incumbent upon me to become a better listener, and it's something I am continually working on. There are times when you have to shut the conversation down and walk away. So we're not Christ. We don't have to turn the other cheek if we choose not to. You do not need to take abuse, but I do encourage you to try and listen. Now, when they start to say abusive things, walk away, because the argument will just continue, because your blood pressure is going to rise. You're going to respond appropriately. They're going to respond appropriately. You both get backed into a corner and you put up your dukes, and that fixes nothing. So there are times to walk away from the conversation, but yes, we do need to communicate better. We do need to listen more, and we do need to be much more compassionate towards one another.
Mm-hmm. And Nate, before we go, I'm going to pull a Nate, because I got one more. I told you I watched. This is a short one. April 28th came and went. Has Daniel Smith filed yet? Those defamation?
It's not to any publicly available record, I'll say.
Okay.
And she kind of said, no, now that I've got the ethics commissioner investigation, I can hide behind that. So never mind.
She's disagreeing to disavow that she did not file those papers?
She has an election now. Is the official line is that she will not be commenting because there's an election now. So it was all a BS plot.
All right. Mr. Grizzly, roll those credits. Damn, I'm pitchy some days.
Wow. Just wow.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver media podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum. And the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Keep grooving.
You know
Keep grooving.
I got a hot date with my beaver sweetie.
All righty. Well, you have a good time.
All right.
I'll see you later.
Bye.
Take care, buddy.
Thank you, Mr. Grizzly. Appreciate it.